Hello, everyone, and welcome. Now, on day 15 of our Advent readings through Isaiah, and today we cover chapters 43, 44, and 45. I don't recall if I mentioned this on any of the previous videos, but many scholars identify a transition between chapters 39 and 40. What this means is that because of some of the writing style and because of the content that's covered, it's speculated that there's two divisions, and sometimes chapters 1 through 39 are called First Isaiah, while 40 through 66 are called Second Isaiah. And so, as I prepared you for this reality, and as you are now finding, the second Isaiah, as it's sometimes called, which we began with in chapter 40, is strikingly different, strikingly more optimistic. So in chapter 43, there is one of the passages of Scripture that I have that's used sometimes in pastoral context and a variety of circumstances that bring people grief and uncertainty. Here is the voice of God to his people of Israel. I called you by name, and you are mine. When you pass through the waters, I am with you. When you pass through the streams, they will not overwhelm you. When you walk through the fire, you will not be burned. The flames will not harm you. And so this is this poetic speech continues as now God is promising that his hand over them, even though they have been through some hard times. All right, let's see in verses number 6. Yeah, 6. Here is this idea. I will say to the north, hand them over. To the south, don't hold any back. Bring my sons from distant lands and my daughters from the remote regions of the earth. This is what we would call return from exile. Many of these people went into exile during the time of the Babylonians, and they were expelled from their land. And for people that treated land so very sacredly, they were exiles in many ways, not only as physical refugees, but also social refugees and exiles as well. And there was also this spiritual connotation. When you're away from the holy place, from the holy city of Jerusalem, away from the temple, they ask the question, how holy can we be of people? Verse 8, remember in the earlier parts, and really throughout this book, there's this idea presented. It started off during Isaiah's call, that people are going to have eyes, but they're not going to be able to see. They're going to have ears and not hear. But here's this. God says, bring out the people who are blind, even though they have eyes. Those who are deaf, even though they have ears. All nations gather together, the people assemble. That when God calls the exiles home, he includes them all. And even those who were blind to much of this, who were spiritually blind, who were not seeing or hearing what it was that God and his prophets were trying to say, call them home. I've mentioned time and again and discussed how this book is very much a forerunner of Christ. It was the most important writing to first century Jews when Jesus had come on the scene. Why? Because they still felt like they were in a form of exile. That as a people, even though they had come back to the homeland, they never really completely returned when it comes and in terms of mind and body and soul and spirit. And that created a circumstance ripe for Jesus, who came and he was calling the exiles home, the dead to life, the blind to see, the lame to walk. The social misfits were restoring them into community. And of course, broadly speaking, he was forgiving sin. All right, now to well, first, I think there's one more thing here. Does it speak of Moses here? Or maybe that's in the following chapter. Must be in the following chapter. All right, chapter number 44. There is this character of Cyrus that is going to be introduced here. Cyrus is the leader of the Persian Empire. The Babylonians had given initial trouble to Israel, carrying them away in exile and captivity. However, the Persians end up taking over the Babylonians. We find this articulated somewhat poetically and prophetically and eloquently in the book of Daniel. And while Persia is not a holy empire by any means, there is something here that God is going to use them for, and God is going to have his hand on the Persians and use them as the instrument to send the people back home and return the exiles. Here at the bottom of this chapter, here Cyrus, the one that I appointed as shepherd, this Persian leader, it says, God appointed him as shepherd to carry out his wishes, to rebuild Jerusalem and the temple. And so these people in Isaiah's time, part of that exile, is their holy city was demolished, their temple was destroyed. And in the prophetic sense of referring to Jesus, I've mentioned time and again that this chapter carries this book carries the connotations of this permanent Jerusalem, this permanent temple that's going to be destroyed, that's going to be rebuilt out of destruction, neither of which can ever be destroyed again. And this is the Israel and its holy place and its temple that Jesus is instituting. When Jesus is calling in the exiles, the misfits, the outlaws, the social outcasts, the sinners, he's constructing a new Israel, which likewise had the temple in the center of society. But that temple was Christ. The temple was responsible in the sense it was the agent for the forgiveness of sins. Jesus was God's agent here on earth, a mobile temple forgiving sins, calling people into this new form of Israel. All right, then in chapter number 45, it continues to speak of Cyrus. And as it does, it says those who had come against Israel, they will be ashamed and embarrassed. As for the people of God, they will never again be ashamed or humiliated, because God has called them home. And there's one more element here I want to go back to chapter 43 that I want to bring out as this video is nearing the 10-minute mark. It speaks down at near the conclusion. The God, the one who made the road out of the sea, a pathway through waters, led chariots and horses to their destruction. It's referring to the events back in the Exodus when the slaves walked out of Egypt. They walked through the Red Sea, but yet the waters parted, and then the waters closed in on the Egyptian military. And so this idea of return from exile is a theme throughout the Old Testament and in the New Testament. Israel were slaves in Egypt, but yet God called them home even though there was an empire that was standing in their way. And then, in the time of Isaiah, they were expelled from their land, but God was calling them home, even though there was an empire standing in the way. And then in Jesus' time, they realized that again an empire was standing in the way. Again, they had not been called home in a thorough way. And Jesus comes, and he is, again, he's calling them home. And we find the church in the early days of the church a place for the exiles, even though there was an empire standing in the way in the form of Rome. Okay, thank you for joining with me. Look forward to meeting you again tomorrow.